does not happen very often. Like we get close.
I feel like scheduling it puts us on tab.
Not at all.
It puts me on.
Okay. It's purely luck as far as I see
I still
it.
be sitting at the computer.
Yes. All right. Let me silence this because it's a WoodTalk recording day, which means the three of us are cramming and sending notes back and forth because we have no show notes. And this is why we don't do a show.
It's like the finals, the night before the finals.
Yeah, well, even when we have 3 months to prepare, we still don't prepare. So, should we just get started with the show?
I think so. I'm a little tired today.
Like every day.
No, I'm extra tired today.
I just call it life after 40.
I guess so.
It's all about being tired and hurting.
I had a beer last night, and I'm like...
Oh, you did?
I did.
Look at you.
I know, right? And I was like...
Good thing you didn't drive.
Yeah, that's why I had the beer. But I was like, tired. I think it was that beer.
You know, I realized I think I've worn this shirt very recently. Mm-hmm. We have to turn over the inventory.
I don't
right?
want to put you.
Yeah.
We.
Like the freshly washed stuff goes on top of the other stuff, and I just go in and I go. I go right from the top. We need to rotate that inventory, flip it around. Yeah.
I did my part. You organize your own stuff.
I'll do it. All right, well, let's get started. Hey, everybody. It's Friday Live. I'm Mark.
And I'm Nicole.
And we're going to talk, well, we're really energetic this morning.
I'm going to try to be energetic.
We're going to pretend that everything's great.
I'm not tired.
Not tired. The kids are happy. The sun is shining.
You forgot to close that.
No, keep it open. It's fine.
I don't even have my mic on.
Oh, you little so-and-so. You want to redo the intro?
No.
Just for funsies? No. So if you want to help out the show, we do this every Friday pretty much. So if you want to help out, you can kind of become a ongoing supporter of the show with a recurring donation over at Patreon. It's patreon.com/woodwhisper. And I'm going to thank a few folks who did just that. We have John Bryant and William Segrist. So thank you very much, guys. And if you do sign up at Patreon, we send out a weekly question that says, hey, if you have questions for the show, put them here. Mm-hmm. And then we give you priority treatment. We put those in my list of questions, which I have quite a few here.
Yeah.
And then Nicole gets the rest of the questions live from our YouTube channel chat room.
And I also I try to keep that feed active. So I'll post the recorded things so you don't have to go to YouTube and stuff like that.
That sounds good to me.
It makes it a little easier.
So as always, if we have stuff that people were kind enough to send us, which
I'm a little behind on the mailbox, and I went this morning and whoa,
got a little bit of a overload
here.
I got
4 things here.
Yeah, so we've got some stuff to show you, and before we get to our questions, why don't we do that?
Yeah.
And I also have an update on a project.
I do have a couple announcements. We have a new free site giveaway going on right now. The Jet, was it 13-inch?
Yeah, I think so.
I probably did this last week. The planer. So if you go to thewoodwhisper.com/giveaway, there's all the details on the giveaway, and it ends August 1st.
Get on it.
Speaking of Jet, I just got an email from them today, and they're running a sale, 10% off. I think everything.
Interesting.
So
for no reason, like just because sale?
I think it just says.
No goofy marketing name like Dog Days of Summer sale.
That's actually good.
Or like March Madness sale. Or like Christmas sale.
No, yeah, Christmas in July.
Christmas in July sale.
I think it just says summer woodworking sale.
Or like
it's the summer woodworking sale.
12 weeks of Christmas sale in the guild.
I know. Right. So from July 12th, which is today, to the 22nd, it's 10% off woodworking machinery and accessories at Jet.
That's great.
There you go.
Did you want to mention Brusso as well?
Everybody's having sales because Brusso's having a sale on 2 of their hinges, 50% off. When you go to their website, it's not there.
It's not obvious.
But if you do go to their Facebook page, it's there.
Yeah, you want to find out because they have very specific part numbers.
2 parts.
CB302 and one of the J. I don't know.
Yeah.
The CB302 is a small little hinge. I'm actually using it on the project that I'm going to show you in a few minutes here.
But yeah, those 2 are 50% off, I think, until the 18th.
And look, that's when you want to buy this stuff. Brusso's stuff is fantastic. Probably the best hinges ever made. Problem is, also expensive.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Apparently, it costs money to make really nice hinges
in the U.S. because they are U.S. made.
Yeah. So, but if you find these sales, and they do periodically have these fantastic sales, you want to take advantage of it.
Yeah. And then finally, our good friends at Bell Forest, again, not on their website, but it came through Facebook.
Okay.
Free shipping on all orders over $100.
Oh, all odors over $100. You know what? All my odors are perfectly free. They come for free.
They are free.
Cost me nothing to stank up this place.
So yeah, that was another one that came through my Facebook feed, and I'm looking on the website. I'm like, don't say it, but
okay.
And I'm not sure when that one ends. It didn't say.
Okay.
But there
Good
you
deal.
go. I'm keeping my eye out on the sales.
All right, let's rip through these because we got to get to some
Oh,
questions
our friend Joe and Debbie Clemmer. He's from Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, really?
Which my aunt lives in Jacksonville. So
Is
you
this
probably can't show the name of it.
Is that going to be a problem?
He knows that you love barbecue. So he wanted to send you.
I'm not even covering it.
He said, first, pardon the naughty name, but I wanted to send Mark some special for smoking or grilling. A few years ago, I was given it as a gag gift, and after he tried it, he was hooked.
I'm not covering it because of the boobs. I'm actually covering it because of the word.
And Joe, you finally sent me a sticker so I can put it on the back here. Woohoo!
Look at the names. Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
The names of each spice are pretty fantastic. Thank you, Joe.
So Joe,
that is so awesome of you.
You're awesome. Thank you.
Very nice of you to do that.
And then we got a hedgehog T-shirt.
Ooh.
From Brett. He said, thanks, Mark.
The hedgehog.
The hedgehog.
So you guys have seen this.
Yeah.
I have one. It's a...
I think I saw that he did a little redesign of it recently.
Yeah, I think he made some changes to it.
He was like, what do you notice different? I'm like, absolutely nothing.
I didn't notice anything
I didn't either.
But he makes a great feather board. Definitely something to check out called the Hedgehog.
The hedgehog.
It's got a pretty great name as well. Here, I'll give these back to you.
And then we got a letter from Mark and Heather. Prochucha?
Sure.
But he sent me a challenge coin.
Challenge coins.
And I just wanted to send our best wishes to him and Heather. And he said that the coin is from north in Fort Collins. He's a firefighter paramedic. He's been there for 15 years, and this is my 25th year in emergency services. That's amazing.
Courage, leadership, and duty.
So, Mark, I wrote you separately. Again, all of our best wishes and healing wishes to your wife and you. So thank you for this. And I owe you a coin now, so I'm going to put that right there.
Bear with us, guys. We got a few things to show off.
Yeah. So, and then finally, we got a letter and a bunch of stuff from, where'd it go? Oh, it's right here.
So these are mask cleaners, which is fantastic.
Is it Leonard?
Leonid.
Leonid. He said to Mark and Nicole, I was planning to send this out a very long time ago, in fact. It's been so long that I'm about to go on another deployment. This is just some of the things that I picked up along my travels in my previous deployment as a thank you. If it was not for Mark that got me into woodworking, it was not Mark that got me into woodworking, but he was the first real woodworker I started to watch and one who taught me how to be better at the craft.
Awesome.
So, and he thinks that I'm the real backbone of your business.
You are. And the heart.
So, thank you. He sent all this cool stuff.
So there's some patches. Challenge coins.
It's been just amazing
things.
stuff. So, I
Very
see
nice.
Leonard in the guild.
I see his name a lot too.
Yeah. So, and he sent you, Leonard. Mark already has this book.
Someone actually sent me this. Excuse me, this exact book like a year ago.
But it tells me you need to get some Japanese tattoos.
Apparently, people want me to get more tattoos. Much to the chagrin of many commenters.
So thank you, everyone that just sent stuff.
Yeah, you guys
in.
are way
Amazing.
too nice. Thank you so much.
And I should check our mailbox more.
I do have a little thing I want to show you here. This is a current project I'm working on. I think this is rather interesting. So, someone wanted a bread box. I said, okay, let's build a bread box. And this is definitely not your mama's bread box.
Yeah.
So this has really exploded into a whole different level of project.
That's what you should call it, not your mama's bread box.
Not your mama's bread box. Definitely, well, it's not even, I can't even say it's bigger than a bread box. It's about the right size.
Yeah.
It's just way more complicated. So I went with through mortise and tenon joints. I've got some really nice figured walnut here that I had, like you do, just laying around.
Just laying around.
It's going to have a bottom door that folds down. It's going to have a top door that folds up. It will not be square like this. We're going to be having a nice little curve in there with a curved lid. It sits at about a 26-degree angle here. And this is what I've been working on lately. This is actually a project in the guild, if you're interested. This was kind of like a drop-in project of sorts. We did not originally plan to have this in the guild, but kind of a late game decision to put it there.
A lot of people have been asking for smaller projects.
Yeah, they want smaller projects and also less expensive projects. So this is still available for pre-order only for this month. This project starts in August, so you only have like a couple weeks left to get this guy. Whoops. I knocked my power out. That would have been bad if we lost the entire show because my laptop died.
Yeah.
So you only have a couple weeks to get this at the pre-order price, and then it is, going to start and be a pretty quick project, but definitely one of the lower priced projects in the guild, and lots packed into this small little package here. So,
Alex says, "Dang, Mark, you're going to cut off some of the best figure on that left side."
Yes, I am, and you know what I'm going to do with it? I'm going to burn it. Just to piss people off. All right, let's see. Okay, I'm going to go to questions if that's okay.
Yeah.
So Joe Clemmer wrote in. He says, "What are your 3 favorite species?"
Hey, Joe.
Yeah,
Joe
that Joe. What are your 3 favorite species to work with and why? Well, if you look at what I build, it's probably a good indicator of what my favorites are. Lately, and this is something that does change. Lately, I would say walnut, cherry. And I always a soft spot in my heart, ironically, because it's not very soft, bubinga. I love me some bubinga. But I just have really, I think walnut and cherry are pretty timeless. And a lot of times when you go out on a limb with a wood, like an exotic species, they are things that may not look as good to you 5 years from now, like if your tastes change. But I find you build with walnut and cherry, it's pretty... it goes in so many different decors. It's something that doesn't really go out of style unless you build something that is just really goofy. So I tend to fall back on those, and they are domestic species, which are not likely to be on any sort of CITES list or anything anytime soon. So that would be those. Chris Calnassi says, "Domino question. I recently have had issues post-domino glue-ups and getting the panel perfectly flat between the joints, as well as they aren't dead even on the ends, meaning that it somehow shifted left or right. I ordered a Domi plate that's from Seneca Woodworking. They make a lot of domino add-ons to help the fence drift and the up and down. Okay, so basically he wants to know, he's saying, should I just use a really thin pencil for marking? I'm wondering if my old trusty yellow pencil with her thick leads are just too wide, and having the domino on the tight setting is just a recipe for bad soup. Is there really a such thing as bad soup?
Yes.
Yeah?
Split pea.
Oh no, come on. Split pea is actually pretty good. Nice and hearty. It's got that gritty feel as you swallow it down. Delicious gritty feel. So when it comes to the domino, I'm always a bit surprised when I hear people having problems lining things up. And I don't know if it's maybe a setup issue. I know some people have had issues where the plate on it, the little plate that has your lines, it's not completely calibrated properly. So they are lining it up with their pencil marks, but the end result is if that thing isn't set up properly, you are actually driving that bit into the wood in a slightly different location. So maybe it is a setup issue, but from what you're describing, it comes down to that pencil line. And I think you have to not really overthink it too much. I could actually get pretty accurate domino plunges even if I use the Sharpie. The reason why is when you're marking across a joint, I wish I had a better example here. I do have a marker. Let's do this. So if you have two pieces coming together, right? You've got, there's one board, and there's our second board.
Do your second.
You want me to do the second camera? Well, I got the bread box in the way.
Well, you can move it.
Move it, bread box. So you got your two boards, and what you're usually going to do is strike a line across there. And then when you take the boards apart, you line up your domino with each one of those lines. But here's the thing. If you have two lines, even if they're very thick lines, as long as you make that line, here, watch this, woo, very thick line, and this is now a close-up of our joint. As long as you are striking that line in one continuous motion across the board, you can actually go like this. You could be all crooked like that or curved. None of this matters. None of this matters. It's what happens right here at the union where these two come together. So if you place your little hash mark on your domino right in the center where those lines meet and then do the same thing on the other side and plunge, you should never have a problem lining your boards up. They should always be perfect. This is also why you can use something like a Sharpie because you should be able to essentially bisect that line. So as long as you bisect the line on both pieces, you will end up dead center. So that's the methodology I use, and it's not, and you can see why I look at it and I go, why does anyone have a problem with this? It seems like it should be simple, but maybe it's an overthinking it. Maybe maybe again, calibration possibly might be part of the issue. But as long as you do that, you could use a thin pencil, you could use a fat pencil. It doesn't really matter as long as you are consistent in where you choose to bisect the mark that you've made. All right, you got a question for me?
Yeah, I have a question from Harry M. Have you ever done Japanese style woodworking like Kumiko?
Kumiko.
Kumiko. No.
I haven't done Kumiko.
No.
I have done things that, the generic Asian influenced
Yes.
thing that some people do. I think a lot of that, the designs, Japanese designs, other Asian cultures
Willie's-
influence what I do.
When you made Willie,
His little
urn.
cremation urn, my
Yeah.
mom's dog. So I've done things like that, but not necessarily niche-y, very specific things like Kumiko.
Yeah. Nicholas says, hey, Mark and Nicole, here on the West Coast, and I hear all the great things about southern yellow pine. What is a good alternative that's readily available to us left coasters?
Alder.
Alder?
Now, I mean, you're not going to get the same properties as southern yellow pine. Southern yellow pine is kind of like that sort of hidden gem where it's an inexpensive species. It's, surprisingly dense and can be used for things like workbenches and stuff as a great inexpensive wood that you can get a lot of. Alder is not that. Alder is very lightweight, kind of dense easily, but if we're talking, it depends on what property you're looking to replace on the West Coast. If you're looking for something that's fairly inexpensive and a good building material, then alder is probably not a bad choice. Something that, again, just the opposite of the East Coast situation with southern yellow pine. If you try to get alder on the East Coast, it tends to be harder to get, a little more expensive, and not as as much of a go-to material because it's just not as widely available there.
AJ says, a couple of years ago, you did a planing versus sanding video and said planing won. Why don't you plane your projects before your projects, or why don't you plane your projects before finishing?
Couple reasons. Number one, the difference is there's a diminishing return on that. When we really micro-evaluate the results of something like that, it's kind of like shopping for televisions. When you are at the store and you're looking at 5 televisions side by side, the differences seem dramatic, right? They can look like it's a big, big difference. But if you take any one of those modern TVs and you take it and put it in your living room and not seeing all those other ones side by side, it's going to look fantastic and you're going to love it.
And don't they do stuff to the settings in the...
in the store, the settings are usually on like
highest,
the brightest torch mode, like blow your pupils out of your eyeballs. So it's not exactly, a fair test.
Can't go to sleep, it's too bright.
But the point is, as human beings, it's very difficult for us to discern fine differences unless we have something to compare them to. But take it apart from those other comparisons and it looks great. So what I do generally is to go for the most efficient choice. And a lot of times that's going to be sanding. Furthermore, I don't always work with easy to plane woods. And I find that taking, let's say, a finished tabletop and hitting it with a smoothing plane in my hands, in my shop, is a great way to get like an occasional piece of tear out or a ridge line between my strokes. And I don't want that in the finished piece, so I get more consistent results just by sanding that surface.
Cool.
So those are my reasons, but there's certainly nothing wrong with planing if you get good results, and you will get that extra little bit of diminishing return. If you can get it, why not? Go for it, but you got to work it into your flow.
The chat has noticed your stitches and want to know how you're doing.
Oh. Really? Oh, from that camera. Yeah. Hand is fine. I actually, I set myself back a little bit. I injured myself by swatting a fly off my hand. I did one of these moves, like where you whip it off instinctively, but I used this hand to do it. So much pain. And then I had like a popped vein.
You saw stars, right?
Oh man, it was bad. But I did call the doctor and everything is okay.
Everything's settled down.
Swelling has started to go down. Okay, so let's see. Matthew, no. We got another question here from Joe Clemmer. Speaking of Festool, I contemplated a Rotex 125 due to already having the ETS 150. Would love your feedback on the Rotex product. I've said this before, I'm not actually a big fan of Rotex as your only sander. I think if you do certain types of work, if you're doing very rough work, you need to do a lot of refinishing where you need to just kind of grind through a finish to get down to bare wood, or you're sanding rough material. I think the Rotex is pretty fantastic for that stuff. It's so aggressive. It's almost like a round belt sander. But for general use, I find the form factor of the Rotex to be tiring and fatiguing and difficult to keep balanced because it's got that long handle on the back. So a lot of people will throw the hose over their shoulder to be able to kind of offset and get it nice and balanced. I just don't think for the average fine woodworker, the Rotex is a form factor you actually want. I think you want an ETS. You already have the 150. I've got a Rotex. I see it maybe once a year. It sits in the cabinet, and I only use it when I absolutely need super aggressive sanding. The balance of a standard sander, random orbit sander, it's all symmetrical, it's even, and the weight is vertical. So it makes it much easier to avoid those little pigtails and the swirly marks that you get when you have an out-of-control sander. So my advice is only get the Rotex if you really need that level of aggressive sanding. You've already got what I consider to be one of the best sanders invented, and that's the ETS 150.
What's your next one?
Matthew Hall. Matthew says, I spend a lot of time in the shop setting up machines, tracking down tools. For instance, changing over from a single saw blade to a dado blade has me walking to opposite ends of my shop. To help this, I've attached the saw changeover tools to the side of the cabinet with magnets. After I finish the Morris chair, I'm going to make a table saw cart to hold blades and saw accessories. From your experience, do you have any advice on reducing the time spent between making chips? Are there rules of thumb you like to follow? Well, this feels like the topic of a video. This is a big topic. It's all about efficiencies. And this is why I always refer to the shop as an evolution over time. When is your shop setup finished? Never. That's why everybody does a shop tour every year, because you change things, you add stuff, you take stuff away. And just over time, you get more efficient. And there's nothing more efficient than what you just did. Taking purpose-made tools and having them near you where you actually need them. So for instance, I have wrenches, specific wrenches for my routers. So even though I have a drawer where all of my adjustable and non-adjustable wrenches live, I put the wrenches for those tools with the tool. Because every time I pull out the tool, then I got to go back to the drawer and get that special wrench. And I do the same thing you do with the table saw. All of my table saw specific wrenches or Allen wrenches, any specific things dealing with that tool, I try to have them there. Same thing with the bandsaws. You know, if there's a particular size wrench that I use all the time, just go buy those, or if they came with them, keep them there, put magnets on them or get some kind of storage over there, and then those things will be there when you need them. So apply that concept across the board, keeping like with like. I've got a drill press over here, and I also have my hand drills and my drill, it was actually a project on the Wood Whisperer site, the drill charging station, all of the drill stuff, bits, hand drills, chargers, drill press, all in one section. Right? Why not? Same thing with your router table. Try to keep your bits near the router table. Now I break that rule because my bits are stored all the way over here. My router table is over there. I mean, sometimes necessity drives us to do inefficient things, but I think you're on the right track with your thinking. I think you know where to go.
I have a super chat from Moose. I asked him to clarify. He says router plane. My boards were ending up tapered, but I don't know what.
Router plane.
Router plane.
My boards. We're ending up to it's really, really helpful if you state your question as a question. These are two statements. And I don't know,
So I'll wait for you to respond, Moose.
The trick though, Moose, is a router plane is one of the best tools for getting consistency because the way it works is you drop a blade below this plate here and you can't, if you're using it properly with the right setup, you can't go any deeper than the tool is set for, right? So that's why a lot of people really like the router plane. So I would need more details.
He said my router plane jig was tapering my slab in the middle. I had to cut my 11-foot boards in pieces and run them through the planer.
He's talking about something different. I think he's talking about... I
don't think he's talking about a router plane.
Yeah, well, I think he's talking about a router jig for flattening. An oversized router jig for flattening.
Maybe.
So he's saying it was tapering my slab in the middle.
Oh, router plane jig.
Without seeing your setup, I can't pass judgment on it. I don't know exactly what your setup is, but if the rails that you are running on, the support for the router itself, if that carriage is not, stiff enough, you're going to get a little bit of sag in the middle. So if you're saying you're getting tapers or a dip in the center, that's got to be the reason why, is you're getting sag in your carriage. It sounds like a personal problem. So maybe look at possibly beefing up the carriage so that the bottom of that, as you put a straight edge across it, is dead
Nick
flat.
Offerman do a lot of that stuff where he did a whole thing,
sure
I think it was fine woodworking, right?
Yeah, you're talking like 10 years ago, though. Where you been, Nicole?
Here.
Reading chat room comments. That's where I've been. But yeah, check the flatness of your carriage and see if you can't stiffen up the structure a little bit.
Yeah. There we go. Oh, Ryan Elliott just said something that we're talking about, how flat is acceptable for a 7 foot by 4 inch live edge slab. I've had router flattened it and continues to potato chip on me. It's a little less than 1/8 inch discrepancy across the middle from the middle ends.
Well, I don't know what this slab is. I'm guessing it's a table. Over that size, I mean, you're asking a lot of a pretty large piece of material to have it stay flat,
Slabby.
I probably would not be too upset by 1/8 of an inch. I mean, ideally, we'd like it to be even flatter. But if that's what you end up with, you might be okay. I would also try to possibly give this piece a little bit more time to acclimate.
Yeah, see, Nick, if I Googled Nick Offerman slab flattening jig,
Yeah,
there's a bunch of stuff out there. Yeah, there it is. Nick Offerman's routing sled leveling jig.
there you go. That's Sean Rubino.
Oh, Sean Rubino.
Made that video.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, I mean, how flat is flat enough when you're talking about furniture and a slab top? I mean, the thing is, it's not going to stay flat forever. Obviously, we wanted to get it as flat as possible when we send it out of the shop, but it's going to move. So it really kind of depends on you. A lot of times what you need to do when you're talking about a piece of furniture that's going to go into a home or an office or something, step away from it. Put some cups on it. Do the things you would do with this and see if you notice that lack of flatness. If the only way you notice the lack of flatness is by putting an 8-foot straight edge or an 8-foot level on it and you go, yep, there it is, then it really doesn't exist, because the people who use that thing are never going to do that same thing to it. So you do have to apply a little bit more of like a, I don't want to say common sense, I don't mean that in an insulting way. Real world conditions evaluation of flatness. All right, Jeffrey Smith wrote in. He said, we got a lot of sander questions. General sanding question for random orbit sanders. What's the rule for the speed you should use on a sander? My spidey sense tells me coarse grits should be slower. Finder can go faster. Am I close? Dead wrong? Okay, I don't pretend to be an authority on this. I could just tell you what I do. There are very few times I even touch the variable dial on a variable speed sander. I usually keep it just at full speed. The only time I slow that down is if I am putting on some kind of a fine grit buffing pad and I'm doing a buffing operation, or I'm using a hardwax oil and kind of buffing that into the surface. I might address speed at that point if I want to go a little bit slower. But ultimately, I leave mine on full speed. And it works just fine for me.
Brian Wallace just did a super chat and said, I just wanted to say thank you for all the great information over the years.
Oh, well, thank you.
Brian,
Appreciate
you
that.
say we're old?
Well, we've been doing this for a while. Let's see. Ryan Murray says, hey, Mark. Thanks for the advice on the exotic woods a couple weeks ago. Wood Database has changed my life. I never get to watch Friday Live, so Patreon support. Okay.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes. Is there a hinge brand that you recommend other than Brusso? Which is very appropriate.
He knows you too well.
Yeah, I have a few projects that I'm building for gifts that require high-quality hinges, but I don't know if $200 hinges on this project are in the budget. Thanks. There's another company that I've never personally used, but I know Cremona has used them, Shannon has used them, and lots of people like them. Horton Brasses. So it's Horton, Horton -brasses.com. And I hear really good things about their stuff, and it's probably a little bit, well, I'm guessing that it's a little bit better priced than Brusso.
I was looking to see if they were on Amazon, and they are not.
Yeah, they're one of, well, they're like Brusso in that sense.
Yeah.
They're like, the only place you can get them is from them. Or maybe like a local store that might carry some of their products. All right, Spencer Adams. Hey, Spagnolos. He says, I've been organizing my shop this summer, have plans to add dust collection. Was recently at Home Depot, and I noticed that they sell ducting for dryer vents that's 4 inches in diameter. Dust collection ducting also comes 4 inches, but the dryer vent stuff is a lot cheaper per foot. Is there any reason why I couldn't use the dryer vent stuff as opposed to ducting specifically designed for dust collection? Thanks a bunch. Yes, there could very well be a reason. A lot of this depends on how much air you're moving, the strength of your dust collection system. The stuff they sell at Home Depot, I can't remember the gauge numbers. It's like 22 or 24, something like that. It's very thin. I mean, if you grab that stuff, even if you get like the snap lock versions, you could probably with a single hand crush it. So when it's under pressure and you're pulling a lot of suction through there, there have been instances where people accidentally closed all blast gates, and you know what happens? Crinkles up, squishes in on itself because there's just not enough integrity to the walls of the tubing. So it's recommended that you at least go to the next level and get like Penn State Industries has flat packed snap lock pipes, at least they used to. That's very similar to the dryer stuff that you could find at Home Depot, but is a little bit thicker. And that thicker gauge wall means that you have more integrity. You could pull more air through there. And if you accidentally close off all of your blast gates, you're not going to collapse your system. So I would say it's probably not a great idea to use that stuff. I know people have. It certainly can be done. But if you're looking to put in the effort and the time, go to something a little bit stronger. Also look into sewer and drain pipe. If you could find an irrigation place, supply house, plumbing supply, you might be able to find some of the sewer and drain PVC, and you can get that in 6-inch diameter, which is probably better for the main trunk of a dust collection system anyway. And that stuff is fairly inexpensive as well. And I believe Chris made a very similar recommendation. Chris Calnassi says, look into 4-inch sewage PVC line, $1 per foot roughly. That's pretty much about as cheap as it gets.
There you go.
Okay.
The chat room and YouTube, they're asking tons of questions.
Oh, baby.
It's a question-filled day.
Ooh.
So
it's a question bonanza.
You might want to use some of these for WoodTalk.
Well, we are doing a WoodTalk recording today, so if you have some, keep pulling them and then send that to me.
Like, if you have a specific question you want WoodTalk to answer,
leave a question for
like
WoodTalk.
Say here. This is for WoodTalk, and I'll pull it over to the side.
All right, well, let me rip through these real quick.
Right.
I got Scott Fargo, Frago. He says, what do you use in a work... Wait. What do you use on the work area for sanding pieces to help make them not slide all over the place? Is there a mat or a pad? I use one of these little mats, and it's kind of just like a giant mouse pad. Mm-hmm. This is what I use.
They're not... He doesn't...
But you can get...
this guy doesn't... He's not in business anymore.
No. But you can get giant mouse pads.
Giant mouse. I'm going to Google giant mouse pads.
There's also liner material for drawers. And this is actually very similar to stuff if you go to like...
Oh, wow. They do have giant mouse pads.
See that? If you go like to Rockler, you could probably find sanding pads that'll be like twice as expensive as maybe going to Home Depot or Bed Bath & Beyond and looking for some kind of a mat that would go inside a drawer. So it's usually the stuff with the little holes in it. Those mats can work. You do have to be a little bit careful because sometimes the rubber material will, I don't know that it has oils in it so much as like the rubber itself pulls all the dust off the surface and might leave a pattern. So you do have to watch out for that. You could even use like an old carpet remnant or carpet pad. Those are good options, really inexpensive options that you could just keep a square carpet pad around, throw that down, and sand on top
I'm
of that.
going to add this giant mouse pad to our Friday Live.
There you go.
It's it's like $11.
31
actually.
by 16.
And there's a coupon that you can save.
Mm-hmm. And it's $11.
Yeah.
That'd be a good sanding pad.
I'm going to add it to Friday Live over at Amazon.com/shop/The Wood Whisperer. Do you have another question?
I do.
I have some super chats.
Okay, so I got those mixed up, I believe. Oh no, he had a double question. His second question was best top coat for General Finishes water-based stain. I don't know what you're looking for in your top coat, but General Finishes High Performance is a pretty good top coat for it. Nick Silva says, just a general question, what has you excited about woodworking lately? Honestly, to me, it's not the woodworking itself like so much as a technique or a project. It's productivity. I get excited when we're productive. And when I get bogged down in a really long guild project and I'm not producing content on the free site at all, or I'm not doing much on my Instagram, that's when I start to get a little anxious. But when everything is running and we're cranking out content on all fronts, that's when I'm the most excited.
And when I'm working.
Yeah, and when Nicole's actually working, That's super
I
nice.
totally revamped our whole way we communicate with our...
Yes, now we use brain-to-brain signals. We don't even talk anymore, which is quite nice. It's a very quiet house now. Let's see, what do I have last? John Bryant says, I know you talked about the domino a bunch, but in 50 words or less, why do you think it's better than other methods? I'll just give you two reasons. It's faster and it's easier. It's not necessarily higher quality. It's not necessarily stronger, but it's faster and easier and comparable quality to traditional things that we might do as alternatives. That's why.
Gordon White just did a super chat and said, woohoo for WoodTalk.
Yay. Okay, last one I have is
right.
from Doc. He says, I suck at sanding. I've got a Festool 6-inch sander, granite grits from 80 to 240. My finishes are never predictable. I've also tried 4/0 steel wool and different color pads, but every project comes out with a different feeling, even using the same can of Zinsser shellac, Danish oil, poly, or others. The boards are always glass smooth after sanding, but after adding any kind of finish, I end up with a rough texture, unexpected shades in sapelli, mahogany, and maple. Please let me know what I'm doing wrong sanding between coats. I'm either pressing too lightly or too heavily, or not doing it enough or too long. I'm befuddled. All right, there's probably a lot to unpack here, Doc, when we're talking about this process of finishing. The grits you sand to, that may change depending on the finish you're using. I'm going to try to simplify this as much as possible and pretty much tell you what I do. When I sand between coats, it's always light. I almost never take a power sander to a finished piece to do that sanding because it's so easy to burn through that little bit of finish that you have on the surface, right? So don't sand too aggressively. That's a huge thing. So I just take a little bit of 320 usually, maybe 400, and all I'm doing, it's not even about looks, it's about feel. I knock down the surface. If there's any grit on there, anything that feels rough, I'm just rubbing it as many times as it takes for it to feel smooth. That's it. When it feels smooth, I stop, I suck all the dust off with a vacuum and maybe wipe it back with a damp cloth, and then I go to my next coat. And each time, each subsequent coat should be smoother and smoother with less grit in the surface, to the point where your final coat, you could usually just leave it alone and not do anything. But if you have to, you can finish the finish by doing a high grit abrasive sanding on that. But generally between coats, I'm sanding with either 320, somewhere between 320 and 600. And sometimes as I progress in the coats and the finish gets smoother and smoother, I will use a higher grit, probably stopping at 600. I won't, usually between coats, will not go any higher than 600. But I don't overthink it, don't overdo it, keep it light, and all you're worried about is feel, not looks at that point. And I'm done with my
Awesome.
questions.
Well, get ready for the blitz.
Oh, baby. I'm so excited.
Somebody asked me what's going on with the Guild what's up with the Guild scholarships?
What's the latest, Nicole?
What I put on the post.
Oh.
Not until the end of July, early August.
Okay.
It's a lot of work to go through 100 applications.
So that's the latest.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the latest.
Great.
Some people were like, can I apply? I'm like, it was open for 2 months. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
we're
gotta
going to
cut
have
it
a
off.
hard deadline.
I
Okay.
anticipate, as long as I don't drive myself nuts on this one, opening it up about the same time next year.
Yeah.
Cross your fingers, it doesn't break me.
Don Joe 706 says, wait, WoodTalk is back? Yes. All right, so
I've already clarified in the chat, but if you want to clarify
I will clarify.
Clarify it.
It's not back as a regular weekly show. This is what happened that we announced in our WoodTalk Booty Call episode from April, that we have decided to try to get together quarterly to do a update show. And it'll just be an oversized show that we'll just kind of catch up with each other, record it, send it out, and it's done. So it's not back in that sense. In fact, the funny thing is we had so many, I told people, I specifically said, go ahead and unsubscribe from this podcast. Nothing new will come down.
Oh, you punked them.
So our audience just went. So it's almost like an Easter egg
Yeah.
now. Like if anyone finds out that we actually
Only
are
the dedicated.
the truly dedicated
or the
people.
lazy.
Yeah, exactly. If that podcast just slipped under the radar and you don't see it anymore because there's no new episodes, you'll have a pleasant surprise.
Gazank just asked if we picked up the Super Mario Maker 2 for the Switch. We did,
Oh, yeah?
and Mateo is making levels.
Oh yeah, he's
So,
doing good. He's having
yeah.
fun. He makes some of the most ridiculous levels
Yeah.
where he'll build something and for no reason he just puts like 100 of one enemy in a box and they're all just bouncing around in there. They can't get out. You can't get to them. but it's just part of his design. I love it.
Yeah, I like seeing his mind work with building that stuff.
Yipper.
Booty. I know you've told me how to pronounce it before, but it's
Booty sounds good to me.
I have finished my new workbench / outfeed table, MDF top mostly, with shellac. It was horribly hard. Did I choose the wrong finish?
Okay, well, shellac is generally one of those finishes that is a little bit harder, right? If you look at the world of finishes, I always say this is, finishes can be likened to types of candy, and your polyurethanes and varnishes are more on the, taffy side of things, right? A little bit chewy. Don't chew on, sorry, my throat sometimes closes on me when I'm in the middle of talking. But if you go to a shellac, a lacquer, these are harder finishes. Those are the ones that also buff up really well if you're trying to make a very high shine finish, French polish, or like a piano finish. So shellac is on the harder side of things, but why is it a problem? That's what I'm wondering. So it's an outfeed table. Its goal is to be slick. That's the primary thing you want your outfeed table to do. And if you have a hard finish on it that is nice and clean and smooth, that's going to be a fantastic outfeed table. So why, my return question would be, why is it problematic that your outfeed table is smooth and hard?
Yeah. Moose did another super chat and said, thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Well, thank you, Moose.
Elizabeth and Douglas Flanor, I got my Empower MK3 this morning.
Oh, nice.
I love the email from them blaming you and the 4th of July holiday for the delay.
Yeah, that was the funniest thing to see, is that they pointed fingers. They named names, Nicole.
Yes, they did.
It's a Seinfeld reference, by the way. So yeah, I guess my opinion, my theory, they had 5 in stock, and then they ran
sure
out.
They had more than
but
that.
yeah, they returned emails to people saying, well, because of the exposure on the Wood Whisperer, we had a run on these things and we're out of stock. But good, yeah. I'm glad they're going out.
It sounds like they're back in stock.
I'm glad the ad was useful to them.
Yes.
I do think it's a good system.
Yeah.
Go back to my coffee.
Gordon White. Oh, we already did Gordon White's. He's woohooing for WoodTalk. Woohooing for WoodTalk. Brady Keys did a super chat and said, wanted to meet you at AWFS, but it came to Spagnolo's or a new table saw. Sorry.
I think you made the right choice.
I think you did too.
We're not that great.
Here's the drink I'd like to buy you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Brady.
This is a lot what it's like to meet us in person, just like this. So
Yeah.
you're kind of getting that experience. Only not in Vegas.
Let's see. We got a question. Our super chat just came in from, I love saying their name. There it is right there.
All the letters?
Yes. OJ. OJ.
I'll add it in.
We'll just call, is it an OJ? We'll just say OJ.
OJ. Wow, what's the question?
We'll read it.
Okay. It's for WoodTalk.
Oh, is it what for?
Yeah,
WoodTalk?
why am I posting that? It's for Shannon.
Oh, well, then.
He's got 3 comments and questions for all 3 of us. So.
Oh, okay. Shannon.
He says everything I'm doing is perfect.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Thank you, OJ. Okay.
I would just want to excerpt that one part and repost that.
We have a question here from Dwight Heapman. Mark, can you recommend 1 or 2 quality sources for buying hardwood online? Thanks much. Well, I know I can recommend.
Well, we've already recommended one.
We've already recommended one. So Bell Forest, we partner with them. In fact, if you go to Bell Forest Products website, underneath exotic bundles, you'll see a ton of Wood Whisperer free projects and Guild project bundles there. If you are a Guild member, you also get 10% off your order. I'm not sure if it bundles with the free shipping. It might. You might want to check. And then there is another wood vendor that we've been partnering with for years, CR Muter Spa. I believe is he in Ohio? Midwest. I can't remember where.
I don't know.
But anyway.
I think you might be right, Ohio.
He also has a discount with the Guild. But if you're not in the Guild, they're still great vendors. So there you go.
And I'll also throw out a mention for Gobi Walnut.
Oh, Gobi Walnut.
That's who supplied me with this stuff. I needed a special walnut for Ava's jewelry box, and I ordered 2 boards. This was the extra board that I didn't wind up using for the jewelry box. So they have some amazing figured walnut. And if you like,
GobiWalnut.com.
if you like the stuff that I'm doing in my Instagram account, if you've seen some of this walnut up close, it's beautiful stuff. Okay, Kojak Silverback gave me a quote here that I was able to post on the video feed about everything I'm doing being perfect. Just a little reassurance for me.
Okay.
Okay, what else we got?
Michael Campbell just said, just a hello from Grayson and myself. Well, hello, Michael and Grayson.
Michael and Grayson, how are you? Doing well, I hope.
Let's see.
I'm all done here.
Oh, I have a bunch.
Okay,
I'm just making sure I'm going through. Teresa Jones, any recommendations for casters? All of my red polyurethane casters are falling apart after less than a year of use. Many thanks.
I'm not that well versed
What's a
in
caster
casters,
used for?
Teresa. What?
What's a caster used
It's a wheel.
Oh.
So a little wheel for
Yeah,
roll
yeah,
around
yeah.
carts,
Yeah.
roll around stuff.
I mean, you have wheels on yours.
Yeah, they're all made of very different materials though. So she's
Okay.
talking about the ones that are like they're red, hard rubber, but they're poly. I guess the thing is over time, those, especially on a hard surface, an abrasive surface like concrete, maybe it's wearing down on her. My answer for this is not really great, but there was a company local in Phoenix that used to sell the best casters, best prices I could find, and the quality was fantastic. So I am not well versed in what's available in the world of casters. I bet you the chat room can give you some recommendations. But I maybe check locally too. There might be a supplier or something like that. I was very surprised in Phoenix. The company was called Luna Casters. And I remember when I was introduced to this place, I'm like, seriously, there is a local store, independently owned, and all they do is sell wheels and casters. It was amazing. And again, quality was really good and the prices were good too. So look local, but hopefully the chat room can actually give you an online vendor where you might be able to find reasonably priced, good quality casters.
Boo TV said, returning answer,
Blobs, hard brush strokes.
Probably lack of experience in bag technique. Dries too fast for the whole large surface.
Yeah, shellac is tricky in that case. If you're trying to cover a large surface, it is one of those finishes that requires some nuance, some experience, because it does dry very quickly. You're thinning it with ethanol, and ethanol flashes off and evaporates really fast. So a lot of times, there's a reason why I don't really apply much shellac. I mean, I find that there's better finishes, but I also have problems applying it, and sometimes I thin it to have it flow out a little bit easier, but then you thin it and now you're mostly thinner, and sometimes that means you're gonna dry even faster. So you do have to move very quickly with shellac, and you're doing the right thing. If you wanna use shellac as a finish, practice on that shop furniture, because you gotta get the time in to be able to wield that finish properly. And it can be a great finish, but it definitely is one of the more finicky, technique-driven finishes that exist for woodworkers. So now I understand what you're saying. It's giving you problems because it's just drying so fast.
Nine, of course, says, I also use a card scraper to smooth things out if you can. Sometimes shellac will gum up on sandpaper if it gets hot.
You can also, once it's fully cured, you can just kind of sand the surface down. You could abrade it down and buff it and clean it out. It won't be perfect, but you can kind of get it to look a little bit more consistent and clean on the surface if you have enough layered up.
There you go. Olson Woodwork said, Mark! Mark!
Yes?
I'm curious how you go about reading grain direction. I've never understood how some people can look at a board and tell which way the grain direction is. Thanks.
It's lines.
Yeah.
It's all about lines. I don't have a easy board to show you.
Well, and sometimes too, don't you like spray a little water or put a little something on it, mineral spirits or something to kind of see it more?
Sometimes if you need to, but
Yeah.
when we're talking about reading the grain for the purposes of, tooling directions, I have a very tiny piece here, sorry. A lot of times you're really just looking at which face is going to tell you the information that you need. So if I'm trying to decide on this face, I want to plane it, right? Which direction do I plane? Do I go this way or do I go this way? So what I'm going to do when I'm looking at this face, I'm going to look at the adjacent face to determine which direction I'm going to plane. Now this one may not be the best example because it's a really curly piece of walnut, and I've got grain that's kind of going this way and that. So there's probably no great solution there.
You want me to get you another piece of wood
Yeah,
or
you know what? I think we could probably look at this. Oh, shoot. Yeah, go get me a piece of wood. Sorry, guys. I'd like to do justice to an answer. Sometimes that requires something that is not sitting next to me.
How about I get you?
Let me see the side of that piece of walnut. Yeah. Let me see that. This one's perfect.
This one, you have
Okay.
lines already on this one.
So if you look at the side of this board, right, and we're trying to decide which direction to plane the face, I'm reading the grain by looking at these darker lines. And I'm going to use the white pencil to
Sweaty.
make them a little more obvious. You got a little bump there that goes the other way. Okay, so here's the grain direction. It's kind of sloping up this way. And here we have a knot where it causes the grain to change up. This is why knots are problematic, because they switch off the grain direction. And even if most of the board is in one direction, if it changes here, you might get caught up on that. So if I decide to plane this board and I start planing here in this direction, going this way, that is what we would call against the grain. Think of this grain wanting to peel off and separate along those grain lines. So as you're planing, you're going against the grain, you are likely to get more tear out in that surface. So the proper direction for me to plane this would be this way. I want my blade to cut in the direction that will not cause tear out, not go in a way that, you know, is kind of the same direction that the grain is going. Does that make sense? I'm not explaining it very well. But you can, even if I plane this way, one thing I'm going to do by reading the grain, I'm going to know.
Pantyhose for grain direction? What?
Yes. Yeah, I'll tell you that in a second.
Okay.
I know that you are going to have a problem here because we're going in the proper direction with the grain. Nice. Everything's going well. Then we hit this knot. The grain just changed on us. So now as I continue going this way, right in this section here, I'm going against the grain and I might have a problem there. All right. So what you just heard, Nicole, is an old trick where if you take pantyhose, something that very easily will catch on, you know, stuff, right? Pantyhose is one of the things that catches on anything, right? I know, I can't even go out on a Saturday night with my pantyhose anymore because I keep getting tears. If you take it and rub it on the surface, when you're going with the grain you would want to plane, you shouldn't really catch on anything. You don't feel as much of a snag. But if you take those pantyhose and you go against the grain, you just get a bunch of snags.
Yeah.
You won't even see it. You'll just feel it as you rub it across. So there's some advice. Get some pantyhose for the shop. Can never have enough pantyhose.
Oh, God, I hate pantyhose. I'm so glad I don't have to wear them anymore. All right. Me too. Scott Harmon just said, what's a good earbud to cut down shop noise, yet still be able to listen to music without being worn inside an earmuff protection?
Well, I have a video on that.
Yeah, we do have a video on that.
Anybody want to link up the
I
Bluetooth
will.
shootout?
I have it right here.
It's over a year old, and Bluetooth earbud technology, these companies keep coming out with new versions over time. But if you could still find, my top pick for that was the Jaybird X3s. I've also heard from multiple people, including a local dude that stopped by the other day, who love the suggestion for the Sound Peats. The Sound Peat earbuds, if you can find the ones I recommend there, were like $30, and then you buy the Comply foam tips. And I have all the links for this stuff in that post. You're in for about probably $40 roughly, and you actually get isolation and decent enough sound quality that it works. I recently picked up Amazon's branded ones. You know how they have the Amazon Basics stuff? Yeah. Well, they have a set of Bluetooth earbuds, and I put Comply tips on them, and they work pretty well too. That's a good budget choice. If you dig around a little bit, you're going to find a lot of recommendations for Isotunes. Isotunes makes a decent product. They are one of the only OSHA-approved products, so if you're working at a place that requires that, you're going to like that. And they have a lot of people who love them. I disagree with those people. I don't think that the sound quality is very good, and I didn't find the isolation to be as good as some of the other options out there. And that was with a blind test on Nicole, as well as a not blind test with me. We actually got the same results. But everybody's ears are different. Everybody's fit is different, and fit is everything with these earbuds.
Yeah.
If you have a
tiny ear holes.
Everybody's ear canal is very different, and the size of the hole, how well it fills out, how well you actually, you got to kind of compress the foam and then push it into your ear and get it like really well up there. That can also affect sound quality too. So all these things make a difference, and what works for us may not necessarily be the best choice for you, which might be why lots of people love Isotunes and I don't. But the other reason why is because Isotunes sends a lot of free earbuds out, so people like them. No offense.
No offense.
No offense intended, but it's the truth.
So somebody just asked me if I put pantyhose in our Friday Live. So
Let's do it.
I'm putting cheap pantyhose in Friday Live on Amazon.
That's going to make so many people go, what? The what?
They should be watching Friday Live.
Can we put a description? You know how we can sometimes...
Yeah. I always,
Let's put an explanation with those pantyhose, Nicole.
So I'm going to put a 6-pack of pantyhose.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious to me. Let's see. We have a question here from Swedish Nuts. My mom's large back Acadia fell down. I was thinking about milling it down on my new Laguna 18-inch bandsaw. How long to dry and work into a workbench? Of the show.
Not a question for me, Swedish Nuts. I don't often work with, felled lumber and freshly cut slabs.
Let's put that to WoodTalk.
It's a great question for WoodTalk.
I'm going to put that on WoodTalk.
But what I'll tell you is the traditional advice is 1 year per inch of thickness.
Yeah.
In talking to friends of mine who know a lot more about this than I do, that's BS, because dry time really depends on the individual conditions and the local conditions that you are storing that stuff in. For instance, you do it in Arizona, you're going to have a much faster result than if you do it in some place with high humidity and colder temperatures. So it depends, and I don't have an answer for you. Hopefully we'll be able to answer that on WoodTalk later today.
There you go. Friday Live. There it is.
Look, I'm going to totally agree with you, Chris, and this is not throwing shade, it's just marketing. Isotunes is the RZ mask of the filter mask world. Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of these companies, and here's the deal, there's nothing wrong with it. It's the way things work. I do like companies, I even said this in my review with Isotunes, that I love when companies support our community. It just helps things go. It encourages people to do more. You guys like watching the content that people produce. Well, one of the motivations to do that is the building of relationships with these companies. And even if a company doesn't make the absolute best product, I applaud the fact that they are helping support the community. Yes, they're doing it for selfish reasons. It's common sense that they're doing that. But I think it's a good thing. I love that companies take independent woodworkers seriously and supply them with materials in exchange for exposure. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. But I will agree with you that those are two products.
But it needs to be disclosed.
That is a big problem. Not everybody is disclosing these relationships the way that they should by law. And that's where it gets messy. Yeah. And people are promoting them and you don't know if they got it for free. Are they getting paid? You have no idea unless they disclose it. And I do think that Isotunes and RZ Mask are two products that are way overhyped for what they actually do for you.
Michael Pickens.
Man, I feel bad that I even said that.
You probably.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
But there it is.
Let's see. Michael Pickens. I have two shop questions. One from David Wolfery and one from Michael Pickens. So for Michael, he says, any suggestions for a small shop, 12 by 12 dust collector for single person shop? I use one tool at a time, and I'm not sure if I need anything more than a Harbor Freight dust collector.
You might not.
Yeah.
If you don't mind connecting one tool at a time with a short length of flex hose, Harbor Freight's dust collector is a classic. A lot of people, you look online, there's a lot of people who have added separators to it and modified it to make it even better. I still like the idea of a higher grade unit with more power because when it comes to dust, the more air movement you can get to keep that dust out of the air and collect it at the source, the better. So maybe you look into some of those upright canister versions, the ones with the pleated filters. You can find those in all different brands, from Grizzly to Jet to Powermatic to Delta. Does Delta have a pleated filter version?
I don't know.
What's Delta doing?
Is
Delta asleep at the wheel?
So when I saw the announcement about Norm being at Festool, it made me go,
Remember
what's been going on with Delta?
Remember when Delta was a thing? I mean, that's what I was thinking too. Like at AWFS, 12 years ago, 11 years ago, the Delta booth
was huge.
That was Delta and Porter Cable. Insane. And Norm was there, and David Marks was there, Scott Phillips was there, and Delta was like that was one of the best booths you could find at the show. And then just in that's this period of time, whether it's like corporate buyouts or acquisitions, how this stuff happens, their marketing has just.
Well, I went to their website because I'm like, what happened to Delta?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Dave, also in a smaller shop, it's a 2-car garage and needs dust collection, looking for the best bang for the buck while not breaking the bank. I have 2 stationary tools and then sanding and routing. So
Same answer.
Dave and Michael, 2 for 1.
2 for 1 deal right there. Here, let's, I don't want to be the only one talking about this. Michael Gomez says, I use RZ mask for mowing, but heavy sanding and milling with fine dust, they don't hold up as good as 3M.
Yep. They have their place. Steve Browning says, would you ever consider doing an outdoor piece of furniture without screws or nails and using drawboard joints only?
Yeah.
Yeah, what about the bench? You don't have screws in that, do you?
I don't think any of my outdoor projects have screws.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I mean, draw boring is one of the best things you can do as an insurance policy for furniture. I've done a lot of repair work in the past when I was really hungry for money and didn't have any other options. Did a lot of refinishing.
The chairs, remember the chairs?
Yeah, I actually got a gig with a restaurant that was pretty close to the shop, and almost monthly they would have chairs that needed to be spruced up and repaired. And the only reason these chairs didn't fall apart is because the joints were pegged. So the glue had kind of given up, right? And the only thing holding that tenon in the mortise was a peg going through it. I don't know that the pegs, and I actually doubt that they were, because I think these were commercially made, mass production. But I don't think that they were drawboard. And if you don't know what that is, drawboring is that process where you put the mortise and tenon together and there's a hole going through it, but the hole in the tenon is slightly offset this way so that when you drive your peg in, it forces the tenon into the mortise and it keeps it tight. So even if the glue gave up, you have a mechanical closure there, a mechanical thing holding that thing together, locking it together. And again, that was the only thing preventing the chair from falling apart. So I think draw boring is a fantastic technique to use for anything for outdoor furniture, especially outdoor furniture.
I put a link in the show notes for the outdoor bench. And I know...
I like that title for the show.
Ear holes and pantyhose. I think that's...
I think you just got the title.
You just got the title.
You also got the free guild project,
Mark.
Mark. So
There you go. Mark, S.A.
for picking
Texas,
the title.
You get a free guild project. So email me, Nicole, at thewoodwhisperer.com.
Made it easier so I don't forget to do it later.
I like it when I don't have to pick the title.
Yeah.
Alrighty. What else? Alex said, Mark, when it comes to shop organization, what factors most determine your decision to build versus buy?
Oh, for shop furniture?
For shop furniture.
Most of the time I'm going to build.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it does come down to time.
Yeah.
When I was in Arizona, I had invested so much time and money and effort into getting that shop made that by the time I got in there, I was almost mentally exhausted by it. And I needed to get videos out on the website, and the videos I didn't want to produce were just like regular cabinet videos. I felt that was boring. I wanted to build, studio furniture. So I immediately started looking for RTA, ready to assemble cabinets, and worked with the folks at Cabinotch and got all my bases made. Now the problem with that was they went together very fast. It took me like another year to build drawers.
Yeah.
And doors and things like that. So it was a blessing and a curse in that way. And if you look at the background pictures in hybrid woodworking, I sometimes forget about this, show the state of my shop at that time in that phase where I didn't have drawer fronts on anything. So all you see, I think I finally made the drawers, but I didn't do drawer fronts. It was this ongoing thing. So in that case, to me, time was money, and I was just kind of exhausted, and I didn't want to do the grunt work of cabinetry, so I bought them. Here, a little bit different. I didn't feel like doing the upper cabinets on my miter station, so I just bought some RTA ones from Cabinotch, and they worked out just fine. For the bases, I had very specific things that I wanted to do because this is kind of an unusual space, and I wanted to have them built to a very specific size.
I like them. They look nice.
Yeah, and I want them to be very sturdy, so I built all the lowers myself, but also enough time had gone by, I felt comfortable making that content for both the free site and for the guild, and I thought it was a good timing for that stuff. So, but I mean, you're far better off building it unless you're doing this for a living, unless you are a time is money kind of person. If this is just a hobby, build it yourself. You'll be happier with it in the end. You'll have more options in the end. Then again, if you're like a rich lawyer and time is money for you as well, and you just want to spend your time in the shop building studio type furniture or like very specific furniture and not cabinets, you may also be a candidate for getting this stuff ready to assemble because you'd rather be building a different type of project.
Doug Wall wants to know if you're still using Nordfab ducting.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Once you use Nordfab ducting, you don't not use Nordfab ducting. Like as expensive as that is, you don't get rid of it. You might move it, change it, and reorient it, but you are never going to get rid of it.
Because you still have you have leftover pieces, right?
Yeah, in the attic space,
yeah.
I've got some leftovers and extra stuff in case I ever need to add on to it or move it.
Question from Scott C. Used Rubio for the first time. Pretty unimpressive. Should I expect much difference with Osmo, Odie's, or any of the other hard wax oils? The Rubio basically looked like a single coat of Danish oil.
Well, Scott, I think you have to check your expectations. That's what that finish does. And most of these hard wax oils are very low luster. They don't have a lot of shine to them or reflection. They don't look like they have a lot of finish on the surface, and that's the point. That's what the companies are going for with this product. Especially Rubio, that's a one-coat product. You're not going to get much sheen. You're getting some protection and a matte finish. So if you were expecting it to be a replacement for a wipe-on poly, I could totally see why you would be disappointed in that. That's what those finishes do. So if you're disappointed in that, stay away from Odie's, stay away from Osmo. They're going to give you pretty much the same results. The exception here is Osmo does build to a certain extent. And I've said this before, I've shown it in some of my videos. The way that their wax finish builds, you can actually even brush it, or I use a roller to apply it sometimes, and you could build that finish. You can't really do that with like Rubio. You have to really get all that extra finish off of the surface. So there is an exception with Osmo, but still you're looking at a very low luster finish. So I think it's just a matter of understanding what the product is meant to do. You probably got the result that is expected for that product if you know what to expect.
Cave Troll wants to know, has anybody had any experience working with cypress wood? I've been offered a couple of 9-foot tree worth and want to know if it's worth it before I run screaming in with an axe.
I've never worked with it myself. Look at this, dried glue.
Awesome.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Dried glue. Glue on cloth. I mean, I guess the properties of a PVA glue that make it glue to wood fibers and bond so well to wood fibers, it stands to reason that they might bond equally well to fabrics. It's amazing. You can't get it out. Once it dries, I don't know that there's a solution. Maybe
I'm sure I could get it out if I tried.
You think? We should ask the chat room. Does anyone have a method or something that you can use to get dried glue out of clothes?
I get my iron.
Without destroying it, you know? All right, last question. I think we're going overtime here.
Oh, we are going overtime. Speaking of Rubio, Kyrus Dunder, working on finishing a project, should I stick to Waterlox I've used in the past or switch to Poly X/Rubio?
All right, well, that's interesting. Maybe that is Chris.
Oh, Chris, yeah.
That's an interesting spelling for Chris. Well, same, kind of the same answer that I gave to the previous gentleman who asked. What are your expectations? If you think that those other finishes are going to give you a similar result to what you got from Waterlox, you're going to be disappointed. It's not the same thing. So decide what you want out of the finish. I'm sure you heard what I just said previously about those other products. Decide if that's the kind of finish you want. If it is, then go for it. If not, don't waste your time and money because they are expensive finishes. You better like what they're doing. Otherwise, you're just throwing money away. Well, one more, and we'll call it.
Aaron wants to know, I've recently purchased a number of hand planes at a real estate sale. I picked up a few dog hole stops and drilled a few holes in my bench. Any other accessories you would suggest?
So we're talking like surrounding hand tools in the workbench?
I guess so.
How about make yourself a nice shooting board? Make some accessories that make working material on your workbench easier and more accurate and more possible. So a good shooting board is a great first little project to add to a new, hand tool setup.
Dean Johnson just said, thank you for setting me up with a Steve.
A Steve?
Steve. He means just Steve. In the guild. Looking forward to working with him as my mentor.
I would look forward to working with a Steve.
Yeah, why not?
Hello, Steve.
Last fun question from Alex Kilpatrick. Completely non-woodworking. Do each of you have a favorite 70s, 80s era video game? Favorite 70s, 80s video game? Do you have a favorite one?
I guess, it's when you say favorite, it kind of feels like I should be trying to go back and emulate it and play it again.
Yeah.
But I'm just basically going by my memory. The games that really made me a gamer are the first entries on the Nintendo NES in the Final
too.
Fantasy world.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't remember what number because
That was more 90s for me.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 3.
Well, Final Fantasy and of course the original Legend of Zelda.
See,
was a game
I
changer.
couldn't finish Legend of Zelda. I liked it, but I never really it never clicked with me. For me, it was Super Mario Brothers, and I beat that sucker. And then there was another one called Gun Dot Smoke, and it was do do do, and you would shoot
Like a shooting range.
and you had to fight the bosses, and I beat
Like
that
Wild
one
Gunman.
too.
That's a baby's toy.
My dad was so impressed when I beat that because he couldn't beat it. He tried so
Contra
hard.
was pretty damn good too.
Contra was good. I didn't finish that. I'm thinking of the ones that I actually finished.
Yeah.
Oh, also, there was one Paradise. No, it was like Star Tropics.
Star Tropics.
Oh, I love Star Tropics.
I played through that one too.
So those
Good
are
times. How about was
we're
it
old.
Blaster Master or Master Blaster? Was an early game where you're in this little truck, and I just remember the way the shocks would kind of work. The graphics were amazing to me at the time. And now you're like, that looks like it should be on a child's Game
Yeah.
Boy, like not a real Game Boy.
I always liked the games that had like an end goal, like complete. Like the ones that just never stopped, like Donkey Kong, like you just kept going until it broke.
Yeah.
I never really, Pac-Man, Cubert, those
Yeah.
are all, I mean, I played all of those in the arcade, but you wanted to feed the coin.
How about Gyromite?
I didn't play Gyromite.
Wasn't that the name of the game?
I don't
The one that Nintendo came out with where you could use the robot to drop the spinning thing on
Did
different
you have
platforms.
the robot?
You know I did.
I did not have
I
the
begged
robot.
my
I was
mom
very,
for that thing.
oh
And you know
my
how
God.
many times I used it? Like twice. But you basically put it on the different spots,
Yeah.
and it would bring these things down so that you can move to the next section. And then you command the robot to lift it up and put it on the next one. And then you realize, wait, I could just use the other controller and hit A and B and get these things to go up and down. Why am I wasting my time with this stupid robot? Oh my
Gauntlet
gosh.
was another one in the arcade.
That was
I
more
absolutely-
arcade-based,
Yeah,
though.
I loved playing that in the arcade.
Okay,
so
let's
there.
get the heck out of here.
Yeah, ending on an woodworking question, but we had a lot of woodworking questions.
Metroid was huge for me.
I didn't finish that
Oh,
one
Nicole,
either.
what is wrong with you? Go play some Borderlands or whatever.
I am playing Borderlands. If you're a fan of the Borderlands, 3 is coming out in
Oh, the
September.
Borderlands.
If you own Borderlands 2, there is a really awesome free. Well, yeah, it's still free. No, it's not free anymore. It was free until July 8th.
Yeah, I
but
think I
there's
only-
DLC, and it's awesome.
It's awesome. All right, well, thank you for watching, everyone. Thank you for tolerating the video game portion of the show. It's always our favorite. Next week, we will not be doing a live show.
Oh yeah, we'll be in
We're going to be at AWFS in Vegas. If you happen to be in the area, you're going to the show. I will be there Thursday and Friday.
Yep.
I will be there, I believe, 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. on Thursday, and then 9 a.m. on Friday. And stop by because you can get a free book. And even if you already have Essential Joinery, get that book, give it to someone else.
There you go.
How about that? They bought the books already, so
Yes.
let's give them away. Someone says looks like you guys could do a separate gaming video.
Oh my gosh.
We could probably do a better gaming show than a woodworking show.
I would love.
Nicole would be much more involved in the Q&A if it was video
Yeah.
games.
Well, if you want to hear me talk about gaming, go over to ladieselite.com.
Ladies of Late,
We talk about video games, me and Stephanie and Kim.
my favorite podcast. Okay,
Aw.
not really. I'm just kidding. Actually, it is. I look forward to it. I like you guys. You're very nice. Okay, hey, don't forget to smash that like button on the way out. And there's also a bell. I should mention this. This is
yeah.
the important thing. There's a little bell when we do the live show that will, even if you subscribe to us, it doesn't guarantee you're going to see all the notifications for the new stuff. So if there's a bell somewhere on the video screen, hit that bell and it will give you reminders and things to let you know when we go live and all that good stuff.
Yay.
All right, thank you everybody. Have a wonderful weekend and we will see you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. No show next week.
Bye.
Also,